Okay. All right, I pledge
Pledge
allegiance to
To
the
the
flag
flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And for people who are in the boardroom, the emergency evacuation procedures are head for the exit as quickly and safely as possible. Don't smoke anywhere on the campus. And these are procedures that you should be well aware of by now because each of you has been here many times for meetings. Okay, so now we're going to the board consent agenda. And the first item would be to approve, I'll need a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting on August 6th, and also to approve the waiver of privilege. Is there a
C1
motion?
and 2.
It would be C1 and C2. Is there a motion to approve C1 and C2? Ms. Ancona made the motion. I need a second by...
Ms. Aruda.
Ms. Aruda? Is that a second? Okay, any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor of approving C1 and C2? It is approved. I couldn't see hands from Mr. Parker or there's Ms. Felice, so everyone has approved that. And next, we go to superintendent's report. So Dr. Gianni.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of items. After, what was that?
I'm just getting a message that people, could you just have the server check? People are saying they can't sign on to the meeting. If you could just have that looked into.
Okay. Matt, you gotta have that?
I don't think they're signing into the Zoom meeting. YouTube video is up.
It's
YouTube's
YouTube.
up?
Yeah, YouTube's up.
YouTube.
It's working?
Yes,
It
sir.
appears to be working here, YouTube. Okay. Okay, thank you. So after a printing delay due to power outages that I think all of us experienced, our district calendars have been printed and were sent to the post office a few days ago. If you've not already received them, they should be arriving in the mail shortly. On August 11th, and then again last night, on August 18th, I held a district-wide virtual parent meetings on Zoom. The purpose of the meetings were to present the district's plan to reopen our schools and to answer any of the questions that our parents may have had. I have held 3 virtual meetings with our families thus far. If you are unable to attend, these meetings were all recorded and available for viewing on our YouTube channel. In addition, we've scheduled parent meetings for our parents in students grades PK through 5, and a meeting for parents for students in grades 6 through 12. Our principals will be running those meetings, and they will be tomorrow. PK to 5 will be at 3 p.m., and grades 6 through 12 will be at 5 p.m., and links for those meetings are on our website.
Dr. Jack, can I ask you a quick question on that?
Sure.
Have we thought to do at least one meeting, building only? We have time for that?
Yeah, that may happen when the school year starts, Mr. Pacini. We did talk about that, but because items were so similar that we were trying to do, we broke those meetings out by secondary and elementary. So hopefully all parents will be able to go on and be able to ask those specific questions.
The only other thing I would recommend, if there is time before school starts, would be to have a call with just pre-K and kindergarten parents. They're new to our buildings, their first experience. There's a lot of different questions. And I sense from the parents I've talked to is that some of their questions are getting drowned out from, just so many other questions on so many other grades. So that might be something you might want to consider.
Yeah, that, and I can certainly see that happening. So,
They don't
okay.
even know, I mean, they might not even know what to ask because it may be the first time they're sending a child to school, so it's just something I think you should think about.
And particularly the PK, I mean, particularly them.
Pre-K, yeah, not everybody goes to our pre-K too though, but I would strongly consider kindergarten as well.
Okay, thank you. And as I said, those meetings are 3 o'clock tomorrow for PK to 3, and 6 through 12 will be at 5 p.m. As our parents know, our reopening plan has a remote option only that parents may choose. If you are planning to have your child participate in the remote only option, we ask that you let us know by completing a short survey so we may plan appropriately. We had indicated that in a letter that I had sent out last week, and that link is on our website, and we did make it prominently displayed on the website so people can see it. There's also a link for families to let us know if they're planning to drive their children to school. And again, both links are on the website, and those are due by Friday, August 21st. So the board is aware, currently we have 153 families that are planning to drive their children to school, and 262 have chosen the remote-only option. Ms. Aruda, I see you have your hand up.
Yes. How many families have completed the survey to date?
I think I just said that. 262 have, so it's not a survey to complete only if you are going to remote and only if you are planning to drive.
Right, so then we only have those. So is there any possible way that we can put out a robocall in reference, because I know that there were a lot of families that did not know that that survey is out there yet. So maybe a robocall if you want them due by Friday, to simply make sure that we have all the information by
Sure.
Friday.
Sure, we can do that.
And Dr. Jenny, I just would like to point out one thing too. I don't know if you're gonna get them all by Friday, I mean, majority of them by Friday, because yesterday in the Zoom meeting, you did say that it's easier for them to go out than in. So these numbers could significantly change by the start of the school. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of that, but
Yeah,
I
so.
don't foresee everybody filling this out by Friday.
Yeah, well, listen, the purpose of it is so we can appropriately plan, and I think what I've shared with the board, and I know I've shared with the community several times, you know, the beauty of our plan is that we can take all the kids, all right? We will have the room, but the options are there for parents to do remote or also not to drive. We're just trying to be able to plan appropriately so we know what to expect. But by all means, parents, those parents that are listening, if you can make those decisions, please log on and go to those links and make those decisions. And lastly, tomorrow we will be sending 662 letters out to parents that do not have parent portal accounts. And that would include our kindergarten group that are just welcoming, and as well as our PK group. One thing we've learned during this pandemic is that school to home and home to school communication is critical, and we plan to use the parent portal much more in terms of communicating with our parents, not only at the administrative level, but also at the teacher level. So when you do get that letter, we encourage you to sign up for Parent Portal if you do not have an account already. And you will be able to access your teacher assignments as well as transportation routes or route by August 26th. That's the plan for those postings on the portal. And that's all the announcements I have, President Hayes.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So the parent portal, though, means that the parents need to have access to the internet in order to get the information and to communicate. And have we been able to identify parents that have no technical ability or access to it? How would they be able to communicate with teachers and administration?
Well, we think we did a pretty good job last year in identifying those missing and learning, and we have a pretty good handle on the homes that did not have internet access, so we'll start there. But certainly by the letter being mailed home, we're hoping that parents will indicate to us that they do not have that access, so we can either make those paper-only homes or provide that access as we had planned. And actually, if it's a K to 12, we would need to provide that access to allow for the remote learning.
I had a couple of questions about the reopening plan. The presentations that you've done, some of that was your initiative, but some of it was mandated by the governor. And the governor expected to have certain information given to families. And so that's been one reason to give these repeat demonstrations or explanations of what our reopening plan is, so that people didn't have to listen to all the meetings, but just the one that was most convenient for them. So I just think that it's important for the public as well as for the board to realize that a lot of the things that are done in a certain way because the governor has given guidance that requires it. Right now, we're ahead of the game because you'd already started the process of letting families know what our reopening plan was. And we will complete what the governor requires by the deadline.
We'll not only complete it, but I think we'll far exceed it. So everybody's interpreting what the governor requests differently, right? Some districts are doing Facebook Lives where you submit questions, so there's no interaction. You know, all of our meetings are interactive, and I do think that's what the governor had expected, but not all districts are doing it like we're doing it. There's taking questions and then responding to questions online. But yes, we'll be well ahead of what is required by the governor in terms of that.
Dr. A question for those parents who don't have internet and don't have internet access. What is the game plan? What do we intend to do with those people?
Yeah, we purchased hotspots.
Okay.
We purchased some 200 hotspots for distribution to families in need.
Now, for the parents who don't know what you just said, what does that mean?
That is a device that allows you to connect to the internet.
Okay, and so how will these parents get that access, that hotspot? What's needed to access that?
Okay, so as I indicated, I think we have a pretty good handle on families that don't have internet access at home. Our principals have already identified those families to us, and we will work by communicating with them. In addition to that, the letter that is going home with regard to the parent portal, those are folks that we know may not have it, and if they were to reply and let us know that, we would certainly make those arrangements as well.
Okay, so basically they would have to reply to the letter.
Well, you know, at first, yes, but then as we did last school year, when a child's missing in learning, we will know that, right? They'll be on a roster. We're going to be making those connections daily, so we'll be able to identify new families that way.
That's what I want to hear, and I hope that their parents are listening who need that information and who did receive it tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, in listening to the meetings and reviewing the reopening plan, I did have a question about both the remote learning and the live classroom
So
presentation.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but that is part of the items for discussion, and I'm
Oh,
gonna
okay.
go over the remote learning.
Then I'll hold my question till then.
I saw Mr. Trent had his hand up, though, I don't know.
I just had a question about the hotspots, but I guess I can ask that when we talk about it.
Okay.
Okay. Did any trustee have a report from any advisory committee? Ms. Felice?
Just quickly, I was able to participate in the strategic planning committee meeting, I believe that was yesterday, and where the reopening plan was discussed and reviewed and discussed. So there seemed to be a good level of confidence in the plan. There was a lot of discussion on how fluid it's going to be and has to be based on what happens at the time. So I'm anxious to hear the balance of the report from Dr. Gianni today. And I'm also, I was also pleased with the parents meeting last night, the online. There were naturally, this is all new and uncharted territories, and there were definitely some glitches to overcome. But last night's meeting, I think, went very well, and I appreciate that you opened it up to questions. Parents, I think, feel much more comfortable knowing that they can ask questions, and I think they become less, there's less anxiety when they do, or when they're restricted from. So I think last night's meeting, I hope my interpretation of it is correct, but I think it went very well. And that's it on my report for now. Thanks.
Thank you. So now we're down to F, which, F1, the plan for...
No, I
Not
have
yet. You
public
have some-
commentary. I have a question submitted.
Oh, good.
Yeah, okay.
Good. We've not had those for a while, so that's good news.
Yeah, well, I have a couple, and I threw a couple frequently asked ones in there too. So, in response to public commentary and no public session, we've asked folks to send in questions to our district clerk. Some of those are here. I've been trying to address those also during the Barrett meetings, but for tonight's purpose, let me go through a few questions that I do have. So one of the questions is who is teaching remote learning? So students are assigned to one classroom regardless of the cohort, whether it's a Monday, Tuesday, whether it's a Thursday, Friday, or whether it is a remote learning. You'll be assigned to one classroom, and that teacher will instruct and or support all students on that roster, whether hybrid or remote. We'll talk a little bit more about that later when I present, but the assignment will be for one teacher. Can my kids start in hybrid schedule and later switch to remote and vice versa? Yes. And I think Ms. Ancona was alluding to this a little while ago. So hybrid to remote is a lot easier to switch to because it doesn't take for a lot of planning. They come in, we expect them there, we plan for them, and then the parent chooses, well, I'm not too comfortable with this, I want to put my kid on a remote. Simply switch out because all the options are still there, the devices are there, and it's easy to do. Remote to hybrid is a little bit more difficult because we want to know that's happening and we want to plan for it. So we're saying that will be permitted quarterly and semesterly, but by all means, if children are struggling, they should contact their principal, and given a little bit longer than the time frame than the one day, we will be able to make those adjustments. So we're thinking more like informal periods when kids are getting notices that maybe they may be struggling. So by all means, if you think your child is struggling and you're on remote and you want to come back to hybrid, just reach out to your principal. Will students be able to wear face shields instead of masks if they are in school? No. Face shields do not replace face coverings. They can be worn in addition to face coverings, but they cannot be worn in place of. Reopening plans and dual language programs. So there was a lot of questions with regard to dual language, and I think a lot of times those folks may have also got drowned out, as Mr. Vicini pointed out, with the pre-K and K kids. And we are going to host a district-wide virtual dual language parent meeting to try to address those concerns with those families. That will be scheduled shortly. Will instructional support be available to parents? Yes, it will be. We are planning to schedule daily IT support in each of our buildings or schools for both parents and teachers as well. We attempted to do that with IT last year, and I think it went well. However, it was a little overwhelming too, it's tough to be able to get to everyone with one or two people providing that support. So our plan is to train and have somebody in each of the buildings to provide that. How many students will be in a classroom at a time? That number will vary, but it will never exceed the number permitted by social distancing. We need to recognize that some of our classes are bigger than others, and with the 6-foot minimum, you could fit more kids than others in some of the classrooms. So it will never exceed what is permitted by social distancing, and we expect our classes are going to be 6 to 12 kids in a classroom. And again, that will depend upon how many families choose remote learning for their children. Are after-school clubs and activities occurring? Yes, clubs and activities will be first held virtually where possible, and then what we are looking to do is a soft rollout for other clubs. So as we move into the school year, as we learn the number of kids in our buildings, as our students learn social distancing practices, then we'll look to include some of the other items in person in our schools. When is the deadline to decide between hybrid or remote only and whether I will be utilizing a bus? That deadline, as I mentioned earlier, is Friday, August 21st through the survey sent to all families and available on our website. I am inquiring what the plan for UPK is. I have read the reopening plan, however, it seems to be focused on K-12. And that's pretty accurate, right? But and that's because PK is not going to be remote. We're not distributing devices to them. We feel that is way too young of an age to do that. Pre-K will follow the same hybrid schedule for teaching and learning. However, PK students will not be using those devices. Distant learning activities will be prepared and available on those remote days. And we are looking at the possibility of utilizing that Wednesday because there are no remote activities. But if that does happen, I think that would happen sometime after school starts and as we get rolling, because our teachers will need to be preparing for those remote days and those activities anyway. So while you're not preparing for remote people, you're preparing remote activities when you're not there. And that is all the questions that I have to respond to this evening. Okay?
Thank
Ask a
you.
question.
Sure.
So I've had a couple of parents ask me this, and I know this is probably very, very difficult. And I know that I think some of the building principals has already said that we can't do this. But you're gonna have scenarios, and I know a few already, where the person who's watching their kid has kids go to school on opposite days. So what is our level of ability to honor a request for somebody to be placed out of their original cohort?
Yeah, so that was asked at I think both of our parent meetings, and I think I mentioned it last night, that we're holding pretty firm on that, and let me tell you why, but I don't want to say we don't have any flexibility either. We did a lot of work to find the sweet spot in terms of what divided us down the middle in terms of numbers of kids so we could implement this plan. And then once we did that, we took a look at all of our households that had different names in them and signed them to a cohort to be able to do that as well. And after we did that, our principals worked to make sure that those cohorts were even within their building and made the adjustments to be able to do that. So it's not as simple as switching to another cohort because it may off-balance things. However, if you have someone on both ends that needs to switch, then that balance is still there. So what I said last night, I believe I said it last night, and I apologize. I've been having so many meetings, I don't know who I've spoken to last. But I believe I did say last night, and our principals are aware of this. If a parent suggests or has an extenuating circumstance, they should report that to the principal, and then they'll take a look at those items. No promises, but we will take a look at those items.
Yeah, I'd like to know that you maybe reinforce that conversation, that comment with the principals. I've seen a few scenarios where, they've gone to the principal, and it didn't seem that there was enough of an exchange for the principal to understand what the circumstances, why the request was being made. So I would hope, and I know how busy everybody is right now, I just wanna make sure it's not a firm no at this point. I would also think, though, to your point about room in the classroom and the size of the cohorts, I would think specifically in the younger grades, which is where I think most of this request would come in, the class sizes are small enough where if we can fit 12 in a classroom, if we're saying that's the max in all of our our classrooms by size, I mean, does it really matter if one cohort is 12 and the other is 4?
No,
What I'm getting
but
at is I guess what I'm getting at is that I find it hard to believe that we'll have a single cohort in the younger grades, say K to 3, that would be 12 kids at one time because of the class size.
well, I can tell you at some of our buildings where the class size is a little bigger than others, for example, Kramer, that is a case that does happen. That it is critical to stay down the middle. But you're right, some places you can do it, but when I share the number 6 to 12, that number is shared based on not only class size, but what, I mean by dimension and roster, right?
Sure.
Both of those things are coming to account. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have with that. Would you like me to move on to item 1, reopening?
Yes, please.
Okay, I believe you have the complete document in board docs. I'm not going to go through it, but I am going to touch on a couple of items in my report. I just want to see what you have. Yes, so you have the complete document, and then you have the 3 documents that were required. So our first item for discussion is an update on our plans for the reopening of schools. Since we last met, we have updated our reopening plan, and we have posted the 3 items the governor had requested us to do. I don't know if anyone had been following the governor, but he had indicated that what he was hearing from parents was that parents want to know what remote learning looks like, how we are doing COVID-19 testing, and how we are doing contact tracing. And required all districts to post those, or actually pull those items out of your plan and post them separately on your website, which we have done, and you have all 4 documents here for your review. So COVID-19 testing, while the governor first said that parents wanted to know how we were testing, schools don't test for COVID-19. So we did put some information in there. Basically, students and adults who show signs or symptoms of COVID-19 are going to be sent home from school. The DOH reports that students and adults that are sent home with COVID-19 symptoms must have a minimum to return documentation from a healthcare provider and negative COVID-19 testing and symptom resolution to return to school. If those folks are COVID-19 positive, they would need a release from isolation before returning to school. So the district's responsibility is to assist families and staff with COVID-19 testing as necessary, and to work closely with the Department of Health and support testing. We're not a healthcare provider, and we do not do COVID-19 testing. The next slide. Yes.
That last item that you said, did I hear you correctly when you said that if they go home or sent home with COVID-like symptoms, they're required to get a COVID test?
They're required to have a release from their healthcare provider or a negative COVID-19 test, yes.
Okay, and those sites or places, testing sites that you list in that document, do we know if they provide free COVID testing?
Yeah, those are actually the sites that are referred to us by the DOH, And all of those sites are free testing. And also in the document, I think you probably saw the links to the sites that the department had recommended. But we went a step further and actually got the sites, addresses, and phone numbers for our community.
Now, is there a time period that the student has to go get tested in?
Well, no, but the student wouldn't be put in back to school until those documents are provided. So,
And would they automatically go into distance learning, or would,
Oh,
the
yes.
learning?
yes.
They would?
Yeah, that's the beauty of the hybrid program, because it's partially remote. They would go right into the remote-only piece. Okay. And the next item is contact tracing. The Suffolk County Department of Health is the local authority responsible for case investigations and contact tracing in Suffolk County, and will support the district in contact tracing. The district does not do contact tracing. The district will support case investigations and contact tracing efforts by confirming attendance, sharing schedules, visitor logs, etc. So we will be able to tell the Department of Health where a COVID suspect individual traveled throughout the building, so we could identify other folks that may need to be investigated. Department of Health typically completes their investigations within 24 hours of receipt of a positive test, and the district, as we did last year, would be notifying the school community when those investigations are on their way and then we find out about those COVID-19 positive tests. The next item in our plan that we updated to bring some more clarity to was mask breaks. So we have written and are requiring when students are appropriately socially distanced, teachers will provide 5-minute mask breaks for every 40 or 45-minute lesson, instructional period. We did that basically so at the secondary level, kids can get a break in every class, and then throughout the day in the elementary level. In addition, some of the concerns were, well, what about when we have really hot days? It might be difficult. So provided children are appropriately socially distanced, that will be in the teacher's best judgment to be able to give children additional breaks for face coverings. And again, provided they are socially distanced. And of course, when they are eating, they will be socially distanced and eating breakfast or lunch. Students that are refusing to wear a face covering will be considered insubordinate, and we would need to address them through our code of conduct and of course our progressive discipline policy, as the board is well aware of. So distant and remote learning. That was the last item that needed to be posted on our website separately. So students who participate in this option, and I made this pretty clear with our community that number one, it is an option, and number two, it is not in-person teaching. They will experience similar but not the same learning experience as those participating in the hybrid model. All student cohorts, whether you're Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or remote learning, will have the same access to the same instructional lessons that will be through Google Classroom. All cohorts will also have the opportunity to connect with the teacher and the students in class each day. That's something that we believe we can do. I know I have spoken to the board earlier about Wi-Fi and only the ability to have the broadband to stream 4 classes. We recently doubled our broadband, and we are also looking at placing devices in our secondary schools. And we believe we will be able to, while not stream every classroom, but certainly be able to make those connections with all students assigned to a teacher's roster each day, whether it's the elementary level or whether it's the secondary level. Those devices still need to be in place. We believe we'll have those in before school starts. But we also recognize that once we start doing this and challenging our broadband. There probably will be devices that go down that need to be replaced, and we are anticipating that as well. But we heard our families loud and clear that were on remote last year. They want structure and they want live instruction, and we believe by making those connections throughout the day and every period provides that schedule and structure and also that live support for instruction. So similarities, all subject will be really in Google Classroom platform. All assignments and classwork will be posted in Google Classroom. All lessons will be recorded and posted in Google Classroom. And live virtual support would be given to students that are on remote learning only. Differences, what we did just recently and shared on the report. I'm sorry, I don't have the schedule to show you this evening, but if you want to open that plan, you'll be able to do that in remote learning. We put a basic schedule template to be able to, so parents can see what a day would look like at the elementary level and what a class would look like at the secondary level. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's good for our parents. It's good for our teachers. Obviously, for our teachers, we will need to bring more detail into it, and we currently have expanded our remote teaching and learning committee to include teachers from the field to be able to work on that. And that is what we are doing now. And those are the changes to the plan. I think those of you that, well, I know all of you looked at the first plan, and now I think you can see that it's quite comprehensive of a plan. We believe that we're going to be able to implement it. Naturally, along the way, we'll have challenges, but as always, we will address those challenges as they come.
I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
Could you just repeat what you said about the location of the template that's been posted?
Absolutely. So if the board clicks on remote learning posted, 817, and just scroll up, you will see first the sample kindergarten through grade 5. And you can see it shows what in-person looks like on the left and remote looks like on the right. And then if you continue to scroll, you will see sample grade 6 through 12. And then that chart's a little different, but I think you can tell that the start of the class period is a joint piece between in-person and remote folks. And then students select the same activity list. And then what they do is they break out to independent learning and again, the details still need to be filled in. Listen, you can look at the secondary will of course be the most challenging because we're talking about 43 minutes. So there will be some flexibility in there, and that's why we have our teachers in with our committees now looking at that.
Okay, so the teachers are now reviewing what has been proposed today, and are they going to be able to figure out how one teacher assigned to a cohort is able to do both in-person learning as well as the remote learning at the same time?
Yeah, I think so. Listen, we have the tools, we have done the training, we will do the training, additional training. I think the difference is that they have not utilized, Chromebook in front of you, clicking it on, and everybody in front of them also having a Chromebook, and everybody joining the Google Meet, and then after doing that short SEL period in the elementary schools, then breaking off and letting the folks know that are at home, okay, it's time to go to independent learning, and then go to work with the kids in the school. So it's going to be different, but I think once that is routinized, it'll be much easier.
But it's all done through Google Classroom on the Chromebooks.
Yes.
And when you mention the tools, Are there any other tools in the classroom that are used to facilitate this?
Yeah, so there's document cameras that they may do lessons on, recorded lessons. There are other platforms that our teachers utilize, so they can use any of those. And those items, actually, are all listed on, for Superintendent's Conference Day for additional training.
Okay,
And
so,
many of the items they've already used from the past closure.
so with regard to the document camera, is that analogous to using a scanner where you put a document through, you scan it, and then you can upload it to your email?
No, it's actually a camera that looks down and the teacher, and you can see the lessons and the teacher works. So, and every one of our elementary classrooms have it.
Okay, so you have that, but in order for the kids at home to see it, that's done through the internet, Google Classroom. And do we know that we've got enough, is it called bandwidth? Y'all are probably hearing, I'm like the least proficient in terms of language for technology, but to have enough Wi-Fi support that you're able to do this in every classroom at the same time.
As I said, I think it will be a challenge. We believe with the additional devices at the secondary schools, we will be able to do that. Without the additional devices at the secondary schools, we will not be able to do that because we believe the bandwidth at max will be able to do 7 or 8 grade levels at a time.
Grade levels.
Right, so we have 13 grade levels. So we need the other devices. And as I said, the bandwidth, the 7 to 8 grade levels is a guesstimate. We believe we can do it. We also believe that when we push that, we may have devices within the buildings that support that might need to be replaced, and we're prepared to do that as well.
So if, you've got the subcommittees that are now bringing in teachers to go over this and look at details, is there going to be an opportunity to have like a trial run so that people can try the system one day to see how it works?
Yeah, that'll be Superintendent's Conference Day.
Okay.
We'll try to do some emulations before then, but I think Superintendent's Conference Day is going to be the big emulation.
How about for parents who don't know any more about the technology than I do? Is there going to be an opportunity for them to try it and look at it from the point of view of their student?
Yeah, well, once we get rolling, yes. And as I mentioned earlier, we are going to put IT support in each of the buildings to be able to give that support with parents as they navigate through it. And I'm not suggesting just a YouTube video of a how-to, but a live contact that someone could walk them through.
Okay. And I just had one other question. I'm sorry, Miss Ancona, but I'm on a roll, and if I don't finish, I won't get my questions in. We've talked about teachers handling a cohort of students that's both remote and in classroom. And again, we don't know exactly the number of students that any one teacher would be handling, and some of it's dependent upon the square footage in the classroom and how many kids are actually there.
No, I think you would expect our class sizes will range anywhere from 18 to 18 to 21 at the elementary level, and probably 20 to 26, 28 at the secondary level. That will be the roster.
Okay.
Whether they are in front of them or at home will be the question.
I just was wondering if any thought was given to having a teacher assigned to the remote learning only students.
Yes, thought was given to that, and in doing something like that, we wouldn't have a plan that you would be able to shift from. So we felt that in our plan, we can move quite easily from hybrid to remote to everyone back. Whereas in some districts' plans that have such a plan, you know, hopefully there'll be a vaccine someday, and everybody will be back in December. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I think a lot of districts that develop plans and rebuild sites and put up tents and use gymnasiums, they're probably going to tell their communities, we're going to have to shut down for 3 days to reconfigure. That's not going to happen here. It's going to be a challenge at first for our teachers to learn the new normal, remote and in person. But I think the plan we put together is very doable. And we still need to look at some of the requests that come in from faculty that may need reasonable accommodations and whatnot. And we may assign a teacher to do remote for something, you know, but unfortunately, we don't, you know, this whole situation is so fluid in addition to our plan, but as things change, the board recently heard about changes that just occurred on August 10th, you know, and we need to be able to shift to all of those things. I think our plan does do that. I also think that maybe we would be assigning a teacher for remote extra help. I see that as a very big, good possibility where they don't have necessarily an assigned class, but an assigned subject, right? But again, because we don't know where we're going to be, and we still haven't had our kids back to see how they're doing, both social and emotionally, but also academically, we can't make those decisions yet. We just have to be prepared to make those decisions. And I think our plan allows for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ms. Ancona.
Thank you. I'm gonna go down a list too. I'm sorry, Dr. Gianni. I know you've been working so hard and I know this is fluid. Just that we're 2 weeks away, I just need a little more definitive answers on some things. So we had a survey that wanted the kids to have 2 to 3 hours of screen time. How is that gonna work with this schedule that's out, going in and out and checking in classrooms and working all day, whether it's remote or even in the classroom, because I feel like they're gonna be on the screen even more than they were when they get in the classrooms.
Yeah, I don't think so. So screen time, I believe I think the number came back 3 to 4 hours. I think the remote folks will not be on more than 3 or 4 hours unless they so choose to. We're talking about at the secondary level. You remember, so there's 9 periods in a day, but the kids don't necessarily have 9 periods of school. They generally have 5 periods of school. While most stuff is going to be done on the computer, it does not have to be done in one setting either. The connections will happen at the beginning of every class. So yes, you could expect 5. I'm thinking no more than 5 minutes of a connection in secondary level.
Okay, then just to clarify with the connection, it was discussed last night, and I don't even, the way it was very ambiguous in the answer. So if a child, whether in their high school or their elementary school, so secondary or primary, their parents might work, they might have to watch little kids, they can't get on to connect with the teacher. Do we have a definitive answer whether they're gonna be marked absent? And is it gonna be acceptable that they log in later even though the teacher's not available? I understand they can't have a teacher 24/7, so don't get me wrong when I'm saying this. I'm saying, is it gonna be frowned upon? Is it gonna be okay? Is it gonna be understandable that there's gonna be situations that they're not gonna be able to go on to every 45 minutes to log on for 5 minutes?
Yeah, so let me try to reiterate what I tried to say last night. And I'm sorry, but the answer still can't be given, right? Because what I did say last night was that I wasn't sure whether or not that would count because of state requirements and state reporting. I needed to look into that and check on that.
Okay, so it's not our policy to
Yeah,
state that
so
it's
I think the key is parents wanted to make those connections. Parents wanted structure, and our plan provided for that. So if the parents choose not to take advantage of those connections and that structure, then that's their choice. But in terms of reporting attendance, I believe that we need to report attendance for our kids. And we need to have some type of check-in, whether it's the beginning of the day or period by period. I'm not sure what the answer is on that. So the expectation right now is that you go to school, whether you're home or here.
Right. Okay, and then, are the buildings gonna be clean like on Saturdays like they are on Wednesdays for the next cohort?
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of that.
Are the schools gonna be clean, sanitized the way
Oh,
they
yes,
are?
on Saturday? Sure, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then the fire marshal always wanted the doors closed to the classroom. Has that
Wide open.
changed?
Wide
So we're
open.
allowed?
Yeah, we're chalking them.
Equally allowed? Okay.
We told the principals to take the chalks out yesterday.
Okay, and then, I did mention this in the health and safety meeting, and, I am interested in looking at the cost of toilet seat covers, being that the students and the teachers don't have them in the bathrooms, to use, and I understand that it could be a messy situation for the janitors, but there are studies showing that fecal matter does spread COVID, and when you flush those, they have powerful flushes, and it can get on the seat. And especially for women and girls, it's very hard not to sit. So I would like to look into the cost of that and see what the board's opinion is on that.
Okay.
And then one more thing, with the playgrounds I brought up in the health and safety meeting, that I just don't foresee how, I know they're gonna wash their hands before and after use, but liability-wise, I don't see how they're not gonna spread COVID, and not be sanitized on a daily basis or after a class uses it. And I would prefer not to see the equipment used. I would rather them play ball or do some kind of jump rope or something like that. They do need recess, so please don't think that I'm taking away their recess, but I just don't see how it's gonna be sanitized on the playground level, and be okay.
Well, part of this whole thing is teaching children proper hygiene. And our plan with the playground use is to make sure kids wash their hands before they use it and right after they use it. And certainly not to touch your mouth or nose and face with your hands during use. We would be providing social distancing while on the playground. I think that is safe. Unfortunately, we do not have the manpower to sanitize our playgrounds after every recess use. But if the board sees fit that we eliminate the use of playgrounds, that's the board's prerogative to do that.
I'm just also saying, because they can wash their hands before or after, but they can still sneeze or cough on the equipment while they're using it. Little kids have accidents. I'm trying really not to be heartless, but I think there's other things that we could do outside that will keep them occupied and they can have fun with their friends, socially distanced, besides using a common thing that is known to be dirty to begin with. And the county and the township also did close playgrounds when this all did first start. So it's not really coming out of left field. I just think that they're very unsanitary, and to limit our exposure, that would help.
Okay, well, I mean,
Well, we
this
could
is an item for the
discuss,
board to discuss, sure.
maybe,
I do want to just point out, while Ms. Ancona points out there's plenty of other places to go, I just want to let you know that there'll be less places to go, because we're also encouraging the classes to take the kids outside and to find outdoor activities, outdoor spaces to be able to use.
would this be a situation though where we're slowly going to move into whatever our system will be and perhaps closing the playground equipment initially until we see how things work might take care of the concerns that she's raised?
Yeah, I think that everything's fluid and everything can be readdressed. I'm not saying permanently close anything, obviously, but I mean, it is a situation. It is a liability.
Anybody else have thoughts about it?
I'd like to, I want to hear four folks say to change it though.
Right,
'Cause
I
it's
know
a-
you're
'cause
gonna
it was
need
already in the other plan that they
I'll
worked for.
first.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Felice?
I didn't have a comment to this particular topic, but what I would like Dr. Gianni to do is reiterate what he spoke about last night as far as the fresh air exchange in our classrooms that I believe as you spoke, it exceeds the
Yeah.
guidelines and regulations.
Can I do that after we resolve this,
Yeah.
please?
Yeah, we're in the middle of determining whether or not to eliminate playground equipment when school reopens, even though it was already in the plan that it would be available. And Ms. Ancona has made her points. I offered a suggestion about maybe a way to ease into it. But if we're gonna change what we've already approved, there are gonna have to be 4 of us that say, change it. Don't let playground equipment be available when we open school.
Well,
And I see Mr. Parker. Mr.
I don't
Trent.
have kids, however, I do, well, I don't have any in school now. But I'm not sure if I think as long as there is a proper cleaning before and after of the hands and the face, I think kids are gonna need activity. And they've been locked in for quite a while now. I'm not sure that eliminating the outside activity is a good suggestion. I understand the concern. I mean, I would prefer to take a poll from parents on that versus we board members. I'm not sure. I just think it'd be a good idea for the kids to get out and burn some energy and being on those different things that they have in the playground. I just think it would be great for the kids, especially the smaller kids.
Any other comments about this?
Yes, please. How many classes do we typically have out on the playground at one time?
Yeah, but the plan suggests smaller groups. So
No, I know that. On a typical school day, how many classes do we have going out on the playground at the same time?
It could be 2. It could be 2.
Two. So
Yeah,
then,
it depends on the playground.
okay, so probably at one time, we're talking about anywhere from 25 to 30 kids outside, completely outside.
Well, normally, remember, we're hybrid, so that's in half.
Right, no, so if we do 2, I'm kind of estimating about 25 to 30 kids possibly being outside. Probably
No,
less than.
No way. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe, but I don't think so. I would say if you had 2 classes on there, we'd be lucky to have 20 kids on.
Okay, so then and then the children have luxury to not only stay on the playground, but to play in other areas as well,
Oh, sure,
correct?
sure.
So lessening that number even more, we're only talking about a few children being out on the playground. So I think that's something that we need to think about as well. You know, I understand class after class, but I do think we need to kind of think about that too, that not all children will be utilizing that playground. Some of them will go do kickball or basketball or whatever it is that school allows for.
And remember, social distancing needs to be in place, so that space might reduce that number too.
Okay, I just think it's important that we all like have that discussion before we start making any decisions or discussions about it. And not that I feel like that we need to make it tonight. I know that time is punching in, on many things. But that it does need to be discussed.
Can I ask this really quick? I'm sorry, Melissa, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you know the static cleaning solution that we're going to be using in the classrooms?
I just know that the solution is the CDC approved. I don't know the name of it.
So can we find out?
Sure.
Because that's supposed to repel COVID, depending, I've been reading other school district plans, and theirs are saying anywhere between 60 and 90 days that it repels COVID. So let's just say that that does work outside and we can find that out, then maybe that's a good solution to hit the playground every couple of weeks with that static and clean the playground in that fashion.
Okay, we could certainly look at that and do that, but I mean, I don't know if that resolves our issue now.
Well, right now, I don't think there's an issue because I'm not seeing 4 people who are ready to say, close the playgrounds. Did I sum that up correctly for everybody?
Okay, so
Okay.
I'm going to look at the static solution that you're talking about to be able to hit the playgrounds occasionally.
Okay, let's do it that way.
Okay, and listen, if it's something that we can do, we'll just put it in the routine of the cleaning, disinfecting. Okay? And now, I'm sorry, I just want to write that down. And to Ms. Felice's point, last night, and I'm sorry I didn't bring it up, somebody must have asked me the question last night with regard to the exchange of air. We talked about ventilation in our buildings, and I think our plan is pretty clear on what we're doing. Our univents now exceed the 15 per square foot minimum in terms of the exchange of air. In fact, as I said, they exceed it, and when we have less children in the classroom, they will be far exceeding it. And on top of that, we are going to have windows open, doors chocked open to allow the exchange of fresh air. Naturally, we need to be taking into consideration security needs, the lower level windows. Someone's going to either need to be outside or those need to be cracked. But we are taking all of those precautions and increasing ventilation wherever we can. And if we cannot provide the adequate ventilation, those classrooms or areas would not be used. In terms of air conditioners, as you know, we mostly use the wall units. With wall unit air conditioners, you can simply switch, circulate, or exchange with outdoor air. We will be exchanging without the outdoor air, and then when those rooms are out of use, that we'd be introducing fresh air to clean out the rooms when no one is in place, and then closing the windows and doors to cool the rooms down again. So that's a plan for ventilation. As I mentioned, I think it exceeds what is required for a minimum, and where we cannot provide that, we will not be utilizing. Mr. Trent.
I have a question about the mask.
I'm sorry. Any more on the ventilation before we?
I may have a question on the ventilation, depending on your answer.
Okay. Okay.
So, just for clarification, you said that it's mandated that the teacher provide 5 minutes at least, or a minimum, of a mask break per period.
Yes.
So the teacher has the ability to allow the students to not wear a mask if they're social distancing for the whole period.
No. Well, it depends on the condition, right? So the plan allows for that depending on the condition. I don't think that's not going to happen.
But that's a possibility.
Well, I think if it's a 95-degree day and the kids are social distancing, I think it is a possibility.
So what, can you describe to me, I haven't read the one that we're going to be going tonight. I haven't read that fully. Does it describe what qualifies as a face mask? Because I've seen masks that are knitted. I've seen masks that, are kind of for show. or doesn't really do, a surgical mask with you?
It describes them as acceptable from the CDC, I believe, acceptable by health, I'm not sure the language. It's not a concise definition, but it's clear that they must be approved face coverings with no messaging on it as well.
So there's nothing more specific?
So, yeah, the gator things with the thin, that, no good. It's gotta be an acceptable face covering.
Going back to the mask, I'm really not happy with that answer about being 90 degrees. Trust me, I don't want my kids to be in a mask in 90-degree weather. But I think that teachers that don't want the mask to be used are going to use that as an excuse. Oh, well, you weren't in my classroom, you don't know how hot it was. If that's the case, then they should be moved outside. So September, half of October, half of May, and half of June are going to be that way in the classrooms because there is no AC unit. And not that I want kids passing out, but I don't want them to have COVID either. So that needs to be tightened up, enforced, and in the policy of how strict that mask policy is. I don't like to leave it up to interpretation because there are people that are against masks.
Sure, but if you don't leave it up to the teacher, given the circumstance in the classroom, you don't know what that circumstance is. And in addition, I want to bring to the board's attention, you may have children that have medical needs that won't be required to wear a mask. And I believe I believe that as well as the mask breaks are Department of Health and CDC recommended, and in the guidance to schools.
So, I agree with Ms. Ancona. Now, does the CDC, when there are ventilation standards, does it say how long for those students to be in the room?
Does it say how long the students should be in a room?
Yeah, so you said that our vents in the room blow more
Yes.
air
Yes.
than what the CDC requires.
Yes.
Now, those standards, is there a time period?
No.
Can you keep, so you can keep, what we say, 12 kids or 10 kids in a room for 40 minutes, let's say half of that with no mask on, up to the teacher's discretion, with the AC blowing, is that circulation enough for those circumstances, is my question. Was there a time period where
I'm not aware of any timetable or metric to define mask breaks. I think that it's based on medical needs as well as the situation in the classroom. I think if kids are well socially distanced, they can take the mask off. Remember, you may have a class of 6 one day in a large classroom where you can put kids in the corners of the classroom and they're 12 feet apart from each other. I mean, that's why you allow teachers to make their professional judgment on those items. It may be a 96-degree day, and the kids just need a quick break, and the teacher allows that. I mean, those are judgments I don't think you can define by policy.
Honey, a break is different. When you said it before, you were like, as if it was the whole period. If it is a 5-minute break and up to the teacher's discretion, I'll be fine with that. I was fine with that when I approved the policy. If you're gonna say that a teacher said it was 95 degrees for 45 minutes, and the teacher lets them have them off for the whole 45 minutes, why is there a policy in place, number one? And number two, is the teacher that makes them keep it on for 45 minutes gonna be the bad guy? Like, there's no win. It's either on or off, and every 5 minutes there's a 40-minute break. Like, there's no question, it's in the policy. I trust our teachers, don't get me wrong, but there are anti-mask people in this world, and we've seen it. And I'm not comfortable, people are sending their kids to school based on, or not, based on our protocols. It needs to be defined if it's gonna be for 45 minutes, every 45 minutes they get a break, 40 to 45 minutes. If a classroom is that hot, then they need to be moved. They shouldn't be in that classroom, and that's how I feel, and I'm not gonna budge on that. That's unacceptable, and I trust you, and I trust the kids, and it's not about that, and I trust the teachers. However, there are the very few that break it for everybody, and once one teacher doesn't do it, then it's a chain reaction.
I agree with Ms. Ancona. I think that the mask policy and the ventilation is the key to reopening the school. Because I asked the question about time, we at my job wear N95 masks, and they will protect you, but for only so long. And if you go above that timetable, that time period, you know, the N95 is no longer effective. And I was asking to see if it was any, you know, information about time in the ventilation situation. But, you know, if the teacher is able to have the students, you know, keep their mask off in class for 40 minutes, I'm not sure if students will be comfortable with that, you know? And I just feel like since there is a minimum, there needs to be a maximum, you know, for me to be comfortable with this mask policy.
I'll weigh in on this one because I think with the reopening plan that we had already approved, there was an objective standard
Right,
set.
right.
And I like that because I think that when you make it subjective for teachers, that's where it's going to create problems for the teachers and the parents and the students. And I think if I can tell, it looks like you're looking for the exact language, Dr. Gianni.
Yeah, and I think the language before was more subjective.
So this has
tightened it up, but provided for, because the question came, and I believe it's also in the guidance, is what about those hot days? And I hear what you're saying, Ms. Ancona, you know, if it's that hot, go outside. But sometimes it's not as easy as that. And that's why I think you have that subjectivity in there to allow teachers to be able to do that.
Parents are not gonna be happy with subjectivity. It has to be black and white and for everybody. It could be the matter of a decision of sending your kid or not. Some parents are keeping their kids out because masks are worn all day. Some kids aren't letting them go back because, letting them go in because masks are worn all day. That is a very hot topic right now. So whatever it is, but it has to be clearly defined. And it's gonna cause chaos when it comes down to a student refusing to wear a mask or a teacher making them wear a mask. And then you're gonna have bigger problems later. That's my opinion.
What we have is, we have a reopening plan that defines it, and the teacher is merely implementing what the reopening plan says. And I think that would be the best case scenario for teachers to be in.
You know, and I think you have to look at this from all sides too. You know, sometimes kids need that break, and if it is hot, you know, and you don't allow that break, it could lead to discipline problems that you don't necessarily need if you just simply provided the break with appropriate social distancing.
A break is one thing, but a 40-minute break is not, I'm
I
sorry,
want to interrupt you there because I
never
didn't
said
hear
a
anything
40-minute
about.
break.
No,
I never said a 40-minute break.
no. Where did you get that?
The way I interpreted it before was that it may be too hot in the classroom for masks. And if, I'll go back and rewatch it tomorrow and stand corrected if it wasn't said that way, but the way you implied was that it was up to, the way I took it was that it was up to the teacher to decide whether they wanted the mask on or not.
No,
If it was
that-
too hot,
No, there's no way, you know, of course, I don't remember what I said, but it's recorded, and that certainly was not the intent. The intent was, at minimum, that teachers will give students a 5-minute mask break for every 40 to 45 minutes, period. However, there are times the teacher may choose to give additional breaks, and that was specifically put in there as a result of heat or other items that the teachers may be able to do. That's where there is some subjectivity. I'm not going to deny that. But other than that, it is much tighter than initially written, and I don't know why I can't find it. But no, 40-minute breaks is not the plan.
So, does it say that anywhere? Because
No, it
there's a-
doesn't. Oh, okay, I have it. All right. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read what's in the plan. Face coverings that completely cover the nose and mouth will be required for all employees, students, and approved essential visitors. Face coverings must be worn upon entering the building, in all classrooms, bathrooms, hallways, common areas, and while on the school bus. When students are appropriately socially distanced, teachers will provide a 5-minute mask break for every 40 to 45-minute instructional period at minimum. Since individual classroom circumstances may vary, teachers may also provide additional relief from wearing a face covering, provided students are appropriately socially distanced. In addition to classroom mask breaks, students will have relief from wearing a face covering when socially distanced and eating breakfast and lunch. Students refusing to wear a face covering will be considered insubordinate. So I don't understand that at all to be a 40 to 45-minute break. I understand that to be a 5-minute break every 40 to 45 minutes, allowing a teacher to give another break if circumstances so warrant.
Oh,
That's the way I took it.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry if I did a poor job explaining it last night, Ms. Ancona.
No, it wasn't last night, it was 10 minutes ago when we brought this up.
Oh,
That's very
oh, well, I'm sorry about my 10-minute ago explanation.
Sorry, Cameron, go ahead.
this is very
Say that, it would go based upon the district guidelines for behavior. But if a child is insubordinate and wearing a mask, will they be removed by a responder? Or, if you could just clarify a little bit, because I know
Sure,
that's a little bit.
so we will follow our progressive discipline policy with referrals, as we always do, so it depends on the grade level. Generally, that may be the responder, generally, or sometimes it may be a smaller child being walked to the principal. But we plan to deal with it as we deal with any insubordination in the building, and applying the code of conduct and our progressive discipline policy.
And just one other comment, just to kind of backtrack a little bit. When it comes, and this is a little bit from before, I just think there might have been some confusion. When it comes from going from remote to hybrid, can you just clarify again? I know originally we said semesters, and then just recently you said if there was an academic challenge that the
Sure.
parent could do. And I think there might, so I just think you might want to clarify that for the community where you're going.
Sure, so the plan is, for purposes of moving back, at the secondary level quarterly and at the elementary level semesterly. However, we do recognize that kids may have some challenges on remote, and those challenges need to be reported to the principal. Generally, we would expect that to happen, say, during an informal period, but by all means, if it happens at any time, a parent should reach out to the principal. Because remember, sometimes it'll be an easy switch. If there's 3 kids on the hybrid, come on in tomorrow, right? But if it's more, then we may need to rearrange the classroom. But the plan is quarterly and semesterly, but clearly, if a kid is struggling and a parent needs him back, just reach out to the principal and we'll get him in as soon as we can. You're welcome.
Thank you for clarifying that, everyone.
I don't know, is somebody raising? No. Ms. Felice.
Ms. Ancona, do you have another question, or?
Again, thank you.
I have one
Ms.
question
Felice
now.
had her hand up.
I'm sorry?
Ms. Felice had her hand up.
Oh, Ms. Felice, you had a question?
I just wanted to add to the issue of consistency. The policy was created so that we have consistency in the event that we do have an outbreak. And so that with consistency, we can contact trace.
Yeah.
And I know that word goes back and forth. But that's one of the reasons, that I think Ms. Ancona is making the point that she's making. We're doing the best we can to ensure our students, staff, faculty, administration safety, and everyone who's involved with the district. So if we start becoming lenient with those guidelines, then we start to relax our ability to protect. So I just wanted to speak to that there's a reason for consistency, and as much as we can, I think we should adhere to.
I'll tag on to what you just said, that also includes hand washing, and the usual hygiene procedures that you want children to learn about, and cough into your elbow, for example. So that would be part of our daily routine in the school district.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, but I have another question.
Okay.
I'm sorry. You did mention that under the progressive discipline, it would deal with a refusal to wear a mask as opposed to a child who, for whatever reason, had difficulty wearing it or maintaining the face covering for the entire class session. But what about attendance, both live and remote? If we're finding that students are not attending class, how are you going to deal with the attendance issue?
Yeah, so that clearly was a challenge last year, and I expect it will be a challenge this year. I don't expect it to be as much of a challenge because hopefully we will be getting ahead of it and providing those devices for everyone and providing that access to everyone. But we will need to do a really good job working with our families in terms of making sure we're making those connections, and we'll go from there. I don't have a structured plan to speak about, but we do recognize that communication with the families are a priority, and we are looking at more ways to be able to make those connections. And we will continue to do that. And listen, particularly with our Hispanic families, it's a bit of a challenge. The language barrier is a challenge. I think you've noticed on the website, this is a rather lengthy document to translate, right? So we found a way to put it on the site and embed it in the site so you can now have it translated in any language. So we are working on those items. One of the things that we talked about during the report outs from our committee work was doing a better job in getting the right information. So when you call your bank or a service provider, they check with you and they say, do you have the right email address? What's your email address? What's your phone number? Do you want to give me that? We need to get into that process as well. So when we connect with the family at home, we pull it up on the screen and we say, I have your email address as this, I have your phone number as that. And then we'll keep that database up to date and able to make those connections. But I think the family connections is how we will be addressing attendance, and we'll go from there.
And early in this conversation, Ms. Aruda asked about getting a standardized backdrop for every child that is doing remote learning, and I like that idea because we don't want children to feel bad for whatever reason, and we also don't want opportunities for, unkind comments and so forth. Which led me to wonder, do we need to revise our code of conduct in any way to deal with how our students are supposed to behave in the remote situation, or are we covered well enough with what we have?
Obviously, we could take a closer look at that. I believe we are covered. We have generally been addressing social media and electronic devices as we have been moving along on the advice of council and also on the advice of Erie BOCES when policy changes. But I think it's a point well taken that we take a look at that and see if we need to make any adjustments.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Rudman,
Okay, that note, kind of being somewhat,
You're dropping out.
you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
I know that this plan is fluid and that it's constantly changing. I am concerned that we are, rapidly approaching the first day of school, and I want to make sure that the teachers and all the stakeholders are really kept in the loop. And I know that you've been working hard in keeping the community kept in the loop, but I'm hoping that we're also keeping the staff in the loop, and that the trainings that will take place will really be geared in the beginning. I know our superintendent's conference days happen before the students first rise, but that we're really utilizing our trainings as best as we can to help the teachers meet this new normal. Being an educator and saying that we are going to do a Google Meet at the same time of having faces in front of us is going to be challenging. And as you alluded to that before, there's going to be hiccups. This is not something that any of us have ever experienced before. And I'm hoping that we're really going to dedicate a lot of those superintendent's conference days to really allowing the teachers to practice this and to really get a feel for it. And the second point of that, when we start talking about things being uniformed, and I know a lot of the teachers have used Remind as their communication method, maybe not all. Have we talked about maybe doing a uniformed communication method across the district so that parents aren't flip-flopping between various different, if they have different children, some teachers use Bloom, some teachers use Remind, some use Class Dojo. Have we had any of those discussions that there's one uniform form of communication?
Well, a couple of things. First, to speak to communication, this morning, principals had faculty meetings with every single building to let them see the plan and ask questions about it. I thought that was important that they did that prior to having their parent meetings, which will be occurring tomorrow. Friday, I'll be doing a district-wide faculty meeting as well, also getting feedback from the teachers. With regard to Superintendent's Conference Day's focus is going to be only on remote and opening our schools on the first few days of school. So it's the only items we are talking about. In terms of platforms of teachers, I think, the closure, you're right, teachers use several different platforms, and our training is going to be focused on the ones that work at first, but obviously teachers have success with other things too. We don't want to tie their hands, but we do know of things that do work, and that, quite frankly, many of our teachers do well and be able to turnkey that out to the rest of the staff. So we are talking about those items, and that's one of the reasons why we have brought additional teachers into the Remote Teaching and Learning Committee to look at that and to further develop how those schedules during the day would look like.
Okay. And because I only ask for those platforms for the simple matter if most teachers are using the same platform, and if we can purchase the platform and have more capabilities within the district, I think that would be very helpful in the communication piece.
Agreed. Ms. Felice?
Yeah, just before we end the discussion, we had two very lengthy letters from parents that we received yesterday. So since our plan is not going to please everyone, and people have certain needs. Certainly, they have concerns for children who receive services and how those services are going to be met. I just want us to be very cognizant of these letters that come in and make sure that we do answer them promptly. And if there are some suggestions that we're not following that seem like it's something that we could do, that we would give it the attention that it deserves. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
you're welcome. Okay. Moving on.
Okay, I think,
We have another item for discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, I need a vote. Sorry, thank you.
don't you need?
I do, ma'am.
Approval of F1?
I need approval, I'm sorry.
Okay, and I think we could put F2 in it as well, or do you want to comment on that one?
Well, no,
Let-
I mean,
Well,
Yeah,
actually,
let me-
I would like to comment on
Yeah.
F2 a little bit,
Okay.
because we got one member of the community who expressed interest in participating in the
Yes.
audit committee. And so what I was wondering is if we approve this tonight, couldn't we add more community members later as others may decide that they're interested?
yeah, so the board, I think, supported the recommendation of one or two. We have one, and no reason why you can't add one later.
Okay, all right. Does anybody want to have more discussion about the audit committee?
No, I wanna, could you do this?
Do it separately?
Do that first one, yeah.
All right, well, we're going to do it separately. Let's highlight item F1, which is the plan for reopening of schools.
Right.
So, is there a motion to approve that plan? Is that Mr. Pacini's hand saying he's making the motion, or is he covering up the camera?
No, he's waving.
Okay, he's waving.
Trying to charge my phone, sorry.
Oh, all right. Why don't you make the motion while you're at it? I need somebody to make the motion. Okay, Ms. Aruda has made the motion, Ms. Felice has seconded it. Is there any further questions or discussions about this? Seeing none. All in favor of approving the plan for reopening of schools, raise your hand. Okay, it's unanimous. And next is,
Now we have the audit committee membership.
right, okay. And we have one community person who's expressed interest, and we need to approve the appointment. And let's see, Mr. Parker's hand went up to make the motion, Ms. Ancona seconded. Any questions or discussion?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Were the previous members of the audit committee, did any of them express interest in continuing? Did we, I know I missed a portion of the last meeting, so they all wanted out, right?
We reached out to them individually in addition to the posting on the website and did not get a response.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the audit committee appointment? Mr. Parker, and second by Ms. Ancona. No further questions or discussion here? Seeing none. All in favor of approving this appointment, hands up. Again, it's a unanimous approval. All right.
Okay, and moving on to curriculum items, administration recommends approval of curriculum items reflected in Schedule G1 and G2.
Is there a motion to approve curriculum items G1 and G2? That's Mr. Trent made the motion. A second by Ms. Felice. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving items G1 and G2, please raise your hand. And I see all hands up except Mr. Trent's hand. Not Not suggesting that you have to vote in favor, but I just couldn't see it. Okay, it's all unanimous approval.
Okay, I'm moving on to personnel. Ask the board to bear with me. Administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in schedules H1 through H3 and H5 and H6. And we'll take the H4 last. So it's H1 through H3 and H5 and H6.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve items H1 through H3 and items H5 through H6? Ms. Felice, and a second by Ms. Ancona. Any questions or discussion? I see none. Oh, Ms. Aruda, I can't tell if your hand's up or not. Okay. So no questions or discussion, seeing none. All in favor of approving items H1 through H3 and items H5 and H6? I see hands from everybody, so it's unanimously approved.
And the administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in Schedule H4-1 through H4-13 and H4-104 through H4-235. So 104 through 235 and 4 through 103.
Hold on, back up for,
Sorry. Yeah.
you went really fast for
Yeah,
me.
H4-1 through H4-13
Mhm.
and H4-104 through H4-235. So I pulled out the items we discussed in executive session.
Okay.
235. 1 through 13.
So it's everything but 4.14 through, excuse me,
104.
through 4.103.
103, yes.
Yes,
103,
that's right.
yes.
That's not in there, that's
Yes.
what's pulled out.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so this would be a motion to approve all items in H except for 4.14 through 4.103. Is that an easier way to deal with this than to do?
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay. All right, Mr. Trent made the motion, and is there a second? Ms. Ancona, any questions or discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of approving everything in section H except for 4.14 through 4.103? All in favor? I think, let's see, do I have, I'm sorry, I don't see Mr. Parker.
I'll abstain.
Okay. All right, so we've got 6 in favor of approving and 1 abstention. All right.
And moving on to business items, administration recommends approval of business items reflected in schedules I-1 through I-4.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve items I 1 through I4. Is there a motion to approve that?
Yes.
Ms. Ancona made the motion, Mr. Trent seconded it. Do we have any questions on any of this? Or discussion? I have a question, and so does Mr. Trent. So, Mr. Trent, you go first.
Are we expecting, more transfers to cover COVID supplies? Or is this gonna sum up what's expected to be used for the whole year?
No, you can expect more transfers.
Okay.
And my question has to do with the transfer from, to cover retro and retiree payouts. And it broke it down. Now, the numbers that are necessary, is that because the estimated expenses turned out not to be what we thought they were, and that's why we're having to cover this?
Those are the actual codes that the retirees retired out of, which we wouldn't have known when we built the budget a year earlier.
Okay, thank you.
Did the board hear that? Those are the
Donato, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, those are the actual codes that the employees retired out of, and there was no way of knowing them retiring at that time, so they need to be transferred.
And the voice that you couldn't quite hear is Christine Costa.
She's sitting next to me. Appropriately socially distanced.
Yeah, how many miles? Okay, so thank you for answering my question. Okay, so, now, we've got the motion, we had it seconded, and, oh, one other question, the authorization to establish the reserves. This is building up our reserves again above what we've currently got in place, is that correct, Ms. Costa?
Yeah, we're adding to
Yeah,
it.
we're adding to it, okay. All right, so all in favor of approving items I-1 through I-4, please raise your hand. And I see all hands raised, so it's unanimously approved. Again, public commentary, we handled that by your letting us know about letters, or rather inquiries that were made through the clerk's office for us or to you. And we have no more to bring up right now. So that brings us to any closing remarks by board members. Okay, I saw Ms. Ancona's hand first.
So I just have to make, there's a lot of, I guess, buzz on the social media platforms that we're going back to school, but we can't have an orientation for the grade levels that are going to new schools. And I understand maybe not a traditional orientation, but considering that we have small classes going into kindergarten, Frank P. Long, middle school, and the high school, I feel like some kind of student tour should be given when the schedules come out. Maybe we could break them up between 2 or 3 days, small groups with masks on. But we are taking the chance of opening, so I don't see why the kids can't walk their schedule. And I'm not saying it has to be an auditorium presentation, because they did get the video, that's fine. But just make the parents more comfortable. And that brings me to my next point on Zoom meetings. I know that it's been extended for the Board of Ed to, September, I think it's 5th or 6th. But even though it's an executive order, that doesn't mean that we can't meet in the middle school. And, you know, I'm wanting to lead by example, and I think that if we're gonna send our faculty and our students to school, that we should be together, socially distanced, with masks on, And I'm not saying I don't like the Zoom platform. If they were gonna change it and this is gonna be the normal, then that's fine. But to lead by example and to practice what we preach, I think that we, regardless of what the executive order is, we should do that.
I couldn't agree more.
Thank you. That's it, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any other discussions? Ms. Felice?
Thank you. I just wanted to make it's two comments, one topic. And this is in the effort to be, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. In yesterday's Newsday, it was reported that Brookhaven Town was assessed a approximately $250,000 fine by the EPA for violations at the landfill. These violations, I would have thought were from the December 2018 violations that we were aware of that occurred 10 out of 11 days. They had violations, odor issue violations, but it's not. It's from May 2010, so 2 years ago, 10 years ago. 10 years ago. And then in this resolution, in their settlement agreement, they agreed to construct a $300,000 solar power at the landfill, which is 192 acres, and they're still slated to close it in 2024. However, since that time, over the last couple of months, there has been discussion, as it was also reported, that the town is looking to a proposed recovery and recycling residue facility, and that is to collect just ash in another 59-acre facility located adjacent to the current landfill. It's in the very early stages. There are many public hearings that have to happen before this takes place. But as I said, to be forewarned is forearmed, and I think we should pay attention to it because it does fall in our school district, and we want to make sure that we're not suffering any ill effects from something that was constructed without our knowledge. We're aware of it, we should stay on top of it. I plan on staying on top of it, bringing the information back to you. There are some other groups that are getting together to monitor the situation and make sure that all the information to be had is disclosed to the public. And I just wanted to make our board aware of it as well.
Well,
And
could
as
I
much
take
as I
it
can
one
find out,
step?
I will. Yep, as much as I can find out, I will, but we really should keep this on the, definitely on one of the middle burners to monitor.
Would you suggest that this is something that ought to go through our strategic planning advisory committee, or at least the legislative subcommittee that is coming out of that?
Well, we do have the
Or should it be through our health and safety advisory committee to have them take the lead? How would you propose that we stay on top of it, other than bringing it up at regular board meetings?
Is that question to me or to the superintendent?
Well, how about we'll start with Dr. Gianni, and then you can fill in.
Well, certainly, we can keep an eye on it, and I don't know where it would land, right? I don't know if it'd be health and safety, strategic planning. I think any community issues we should stay on top of, and naturally bring them to the board for further discussion. I don't know if you can assign that to one of the advisory committees as of yet, because I don't know if it falls into any of those strategic planning, or I don't even know if it falls into legislative. I think it's just important that we keep an eye on that, just like we keep an eye on the IDAs that occur, and anything that may impact the school district in any way, and when it does, we'll move forward and deal with it appropriately.
And I would agree with that. Since it was stated publicly at the Belport Coalition that public hearings will be had, they want input from the community. So I trust that we'll be receiving that notification, and we should attend those public hearings accordingly. Okay.
Okay. Any other trustee comments?
I did have, I'm sorry, I did have one comment. And I just want to thank the board and especially Dr. Gianni. There's a lot of work involved now. We are living in times that we've never experienced before, and it is a lot of work. And I just want to say thank you to everyone. Dr. Gianni, your leadership is shining through. Thank you very much. And, you know, we don't always agree on everything, but I understand there's a lot of work involved.
If I can also jump in there, you know, I definitely agree with, Mr. Parker. You know, I know sometimes we can be tough on you, but I definitely appreciate you now. You know, it's very, you know, this is, you know, trying times with everything that's going on, very difficult. And, you know, we can be difficult at times as a board, I know that. But thank you. I definitely appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So, is there a motion to adjourn? That's Mr. Trent, and a second by Mr. Parker. Okay, all in favor? All hands were raised, so we're now adjourned.